Hi everyone! So today for my persuasive speech, I wanted to start it off with what one picture makes you feel before I give you the topic. So the picture I have here is of a little boy in a pool playing with a lion. Here, the same thing is a girl petting the lion. Hopefully how that picture makes you feel is a little nervous and uncomfortable. So for the topic of my speech, it's why owning exotic pets should be illegal. To own an exotic pet, what that means is a pet that is not native to your area. The exact definition of what an exotic pet is given by the U.S. Legal Dictionary is an exotic pet is any animal not identified in the definition of an animal, provided in this part that it is native to a foreign country. It is not native to the U.S. or was introduced from abroad. So what that means is an animal that is obviously from, like, let's say a monkey or a lion, something that's not native to Pennsylvania. So owning an exotic animal has many negative effects, some being on the environment, our ecosystems, and the animals themselves. So here we'll start talking about the effects it has on an ecosystem. So to bring in an animal that is not native to an ecosystem disrupts the current ecosystem that it's been placed in. The best example that I could find for an ecosystem that had been disrupted by people who own their exotic pets was actually Florida. So a lot of times in Florida, because of the warm climate, people would bring in pythons or different kinds of snakes into that area. After those snakes would get bigger and bigger and bigger, some, up to 15 feet, the people obviously can't keep them in their house or really anywhere that they felt comfortable. So they were releasing them into the Florida Everglades. Now, since that's happened, they have kind of taken over the Everglades and put a huge dent in that current ecosystem. So here are some pictures I have. I don't know if you can see that very well. So this is a python, and inside of it is a grown deer. Another one that I'll show you is a picture of a python ripped in half because the inside is a crocodile. Here you can see a python that hunters have caught that is over 15 feet. Now, the animals that are inside of the python typically don't have any other animals that are killing them. So crocodiles in that ecosystem are kind of top of the food chain. So when those crocodiles start getting eaten by snakes, that's less food for them. It's less food for other animals in that ecosystem, and it's taking away from predators. So another thing about that is, since the pythons have been introduced to that ecosystem, in 2017, there was a study done by the USGC, which is Florida's government, that showed that the raccoon population had dropped 93%, bobcats 87%, possums 98%, and then foxes in a type of rabbit called a marsh rabbit had completely disappeared altogether. So by those mammals disappearing, it's less food for the deer, the crocodiles, and other things living in that ecosystem. So essentially what's happening is the pythons are coming and just wiping out everything, completely getting rid of certain animals. So Florida has actually hired snake hunters to come in and start to remove the pythons that are living in that area. Within the first week of that happening, they removed over 100 snakes in a week. So another thing is that it's dangerous for the animals. What that means is that the regulations vary from state to state, so there's not a mandated system for people to follow. So a lot of the animal trade that's happening is happening illegally. So that means that a lot of the times the animals aren't really kept in the best condition because they're smuggling them into our country. So one example that I found of this was birds. A lot of times exotic birds are brought into the country, and in order for them not to make any noise when they see light change, they will blind the birds, slit their eyes, cut off their tongues. It's pretty sad what's happening, and also the conditions that they keep the animals in are horrible, just really terrible. Not the kind of enclosures that the animals are used to, or obviously what they're used to in their native environment. People who purchase animals aren't really trained as well. So they don't really know how to handle it. I know that obviously you would think that would be kind of easy, but animals in the wild go have a very specific diet, how much not vegetables, but you know, greens and different things that they intake, as well as how much meat they have a day. So somebody that owns a pet lion probably doesn't really understand how to properly take care of that animal or an animal of that size. Another thing is veterinary care. I think a lot of people don't really think that what if something happens? I mean, there's probably not a lot of exotic animal vets in Harrisburg. I mean, they're probably not trained to take care of it. So if you do have a pet lion and, you know, something happens to it, what are you going to do? I mean, it might be days before you can get a veterinarian in to take care of it or anything along those lines. Taking away animals from their habitat too not only hurts the animal, but it also hurts the habitat they're originally from. So if you remove an animal from its habitat, that's one less predator, or that's one less, you know, I hate to say it, but meal for another animal that's being removed from that natural habitat. So it's disrupting that ecosystem as well. So another thing that I wanted to talk about is not only how it's dangerous for the environment and also the animals, it's also dangerous for people involved, the people around. The CDC says that 90% of reptiles carry a form of salmonella in their face and their saliva. 93,000 cases of salmonella last year were linked to reptile exposure. Typically, macaw monkeys carry a virus called the herpes B virus. Although it is not fatal to monkeys, it's fatal to humans. So sometimes a single bite from one of those monkeys can kill you. Also, them being wild means that they're unpredictable. So wild animals are wild. They are dangerous. So just because you think that you know your animal and you've owned it for a while and you love it like a pet, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to stay nice and cute and little and snuggly forever. So I have a few different examples of times that pets have attacked their owners. So once a woman who had been caught and cited multiple times for not properly having her pet mountain lion enclosed, she didn't have the right vaccinations for it, etc., had a enclosure that wasn't really properly built. There was big gaps in the fence. So what had happened was her 4-year-old nephew was at her house, and the mountain lion got through the enclosure and grabbed the 4-year-old and brought it towards the cage and mauled him. He survived, but he's missing half of his face and has permanent brain damage for the rest of his life. So although it wasn't that child's choice to own a mountain lion, his life was affected forever. Another case I have actually happened here in Pennsylvania. It was of a woman who owned a pet bear. She had owned this bear since it was a cub. She went in to clean its cage, which she did all the time. Her children and her neighbor children were outside of the cage playing when the bear attacked and ate her. So not only is that woman dead, but now her children have to live their life with the emotional damage that comes from watching your mother getting eaten by a bear in front of you. Another case too that I have is a woman who owned wolf hybrid dogs. She owned 9 that she had raised since they were puppies. As they grew older, one day, for who knows why, no one will ever know because she's dead, they mauled her to death, and her children also found her. So that's another group of people that will be affected by that choice for the rest of their lives. The number one case that I wanted to talk about, and probably the most disturbing, I'm sorry if these images are kind of gross, but it goes along with what I'm saying, is Charlotte Nash. So this is her. I don't know if you can see her. There you go. She had a friend who owned a pet chimpanzee named Travis that she had since he was a baby. She did everything with this monkey. Charlotte sometimes would watch the monkey. One time, the monkey had gotten out and her friend had called Charlotte to come and help catch the monkey. So she goes over, she helps get the monkey and tries to get it inside, and he goes crazy. Completely attacks her, breaks all the bones in her face, her ribs, completely essentially rips her face off. Her face is completely off. So since that has happened, this was her after the attack. And so since then, she's had a face transplant. Unfortunately, she has rejected the face transplant and now has an ungodly amount of medical bills that she can't afford to pay. Now, she didn't own that pet, and that could have been anybody that was walking on the street when that monkey got out. And I don't know, but could you imagine if that happened to you or someone you love because somebody around you chose to have a wild animal as a pet? So what you can do to stop the ownership of exotic animals is to sign some petitions, reach out to your local government, find out if there are any laws within your area about if that's even regulated. I mean, for all you know, it could be completely legal to have any kind of pet you want. So it's important to be educated, do your research, and then if you find out that your local legislation doesn't have any laws, perhaps, you know, reach out to them and see if they can introduce legislation to ban the ownership of exotic animals. The conclusion of my speech is it's our duty to be informed, to not only protect ourselves and the people around us, but also those animals and the ecosystems that they and we live in by stopping the ownership of illegal animals. Thanks.